or an open core institution, so we get great students, get those, this is a good fine.
Okay, we'll call to order the April 24th, 2026 meeting of the Board of Equalization of Albemarle County. Start with a roll call to ensure we have a quorum.
Jim Knoxville present.
Frank Friedman, present.
Evan Mayo present.
David Norfolk present.
Okay, we have a quorum in person membership. And then we'll move to the approval of meetings from the 2026 meeting. April 22, 2026. Anyone have any corrections there? I think that we may have started the meeting a little after 8 a.m. It says 8 a.m. in the recital section at the top. I think it may have been 8:15 or something to that effect, but otherwise they look correct to me. Is there a motion with respect to the meetings from April 22?
Yeah, I'll move.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, all in favor?
Yeah.
Aye. All right, this motion passes unanimously and the minutes are approved. Any other new business before we call in the first applicant number 70? Hearing none, I think we're ready.
Leave the.
Okay.
My turn?
Yeah.
Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning.
I am applicant number.
Before we start, can I swear you in?
Absolutely.
You're gonna give testimony, and anyone from the assessor's office who might testify today.
How do you pronounce your name?
Edward, I go by Ed, last name is Shaliga.
Shaliga?
Yeah, and you
Thank
can
you.
refer to me as Ed. That's fine.
Thank you. All right, if you raise your hand, do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony, both oral and documentary, which you are about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. So you'll have 10 minutes to present your case for an adjustment, Mr. Sheliga, and then there'll be a 7-minute presentation from the appraiser's office. And then you have up to 3 minutes for rebuttal that you can choose to use if you like.
Got it.
All right.
My turn?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. First, I want to thank the committee, and also I want to thank Ms. Sheila Conrad and Mr. Mark Boyko and others from the assessor's office and providing the information and to do this process and explaining the procedures. The property in question is 1510 Kenworth Lane at my primary residence. It was built in 2008. One owner, no upgrades since the renovation or since the original building, no renovations or changes made. We occupied it in August of 2008. It was inspected by the county for tax purposes when it was built in 2008, and then again, just recently, March 2026. In January 2026, I received our 2026 tax assessment. And as I looked at it, I had this feeling that something's not right. And I want to give you some background of where my taxes have gone over the 18 years. From 2009 until 2021, which was 2009 was the first full year of ownership, not a partial year. The taxes were $914,600. Fast forward 12 years, in 2021, they were $1,016,000, an increase of 11% over 12 years, an increase of $101,000. In 2022, they increased 87,000, which is an 8.6% increase. 2023, 174,700, which was a 16.6% increase. 2024, 111,800, which is an 8.7% increase over the previous year. 2025, 164,000, which was an 11.8% increase over the previous year. 2026, the assessed value was $1,730,800, for an increase of $176,400, or 11.4% over the previous years. Basically, over a 5-year period, my assessment increased $714,000 or 70.3% increase. I requested a review. The review occurred on February 6th. I requested on February 6th. The county sent out an assessor. The woman walked through the entire home and compared the visual aspects of the home to the property records. And in the course of that inspection, she identified an area above the garage, 325 square feet, which according to the records showed as being finished living space, which in fact it's not. It was just joists and bare floor, no drywall, no insulation. And she said the records will be adjusted accordingly. On March 13th, I received a revised 2026 assessment. Because of that one error in the record, my assessed value was reduced by $80,300 from 1.73 million to 1.65 million. Now, just for a moment, think about this. This record has been incorrect for 18 years, and it has a cumulative effect. Every time there's an increase in the property value by a percentage, that error keeps on multiplying and increases. Even with the reduced assessment, the increase over the 5-year period, the previous 5 years, is still 57.5% and $634,400. I contend, based on an assessment by a licensed real estate agent that did a market evaluation of my home, that my property should be valued at $1,335,000 or less. When I received the revised assessment of 1.65 million, I challenged that, and that's why we're here today. After I submitted the formal documentation for the challenge, in accordance with the regulations, the tax office provided me via email PDF copies of all the documentation that they use to determine my assessed value. And it included this form, which lists all the details of my home. And it also included a list of 24 homes in Glenmore. And I should have said my property is in the Glenmore community. 24 homes that sold in the last 12 months. The price range of these 24 homes is 700,000 to 1.79 million, a spread of $1,090,000. I looked at them. 23 of the 24 homes on this list, the sale price was less than my assessed value. There's only one that is higher than what my property is assessed in. The average sale price was $1,151,700, or $500,000 less than my assessed value. I looked at this list and I decided to do a little calculation of my own. I identified the 5 lowest values and the 5 highest values and removed them. And then I focused in on the remaining 14 homes that were, if you would, call the center of the bell curve. The 14 remaining, the average price is $1,051,735, $635,000, which is $600,000 less than my assessed value. On this form, my home is evaluated or classified, and I suspect that you're all familiar with this, as an A+1. One of the things that the county provided me was a copy of Albemarle County 2026 Grade Standard Guide, which was published in December 2025. And it identifies different categories of classes of home: mansion, luxury. Mine is in the excellent category. There's an A-, A, and an A+. It states in the guide that properties are graded A, A-, and A+ are handled by senior appraisers who have coursework, field experience, and knowledge of the market area and the components and finishes for this type of property. It also states that it is suggested that when evaluating an A+1 home, a second opinion or guidance from another appraiser is confirmed. I don't know if this has happened. It may have, you'd have to ask the appraiser. From what I understand, that the woman that came out to do evaluation of my home is no longer with the assessor's office. In the guide, under the category of grade A, it lists features of homes in 13 different categories. And within those 13 different categories, it gives descriptions of sub-elements of those categories. It gives a total of 40 different descriptions, hardwood floors, countertops, things of that nature. It states excellent grade homes with a quality of A- means that the quality of the improvements do not have some of the features of the base A or contains them to a lesser extent. So keep in mind, I'm rated at A+1. It says here an A- does not have some of the features. I went through the 40 features. My home does not have 19 of them. It'll take a moment or two. If you want, I can read them. Show things that they assess my home to have that I don't have. Which raises the grade quality to an A+. Now, I believe that you all have a copy of or a photograph of my home. And I want to give you, this is an extract of the guide. I only had 2 copies. There are photographs of A+ homes. And I both of them.
We have.
They're both the same.
We have it.
Yes, yeah.
But sure.
And the page numbers on it. My home doesn't look anything like those. If you don't have a copy or a picture of my home, I'd be glad to, I've got a copy that also I'd be glad to provide it to you.
We have it in the packet. At least the front picture.
Yeah. In the assessor's evaluation comments provided to me a week ago, and also a email, it states, it's a typical home for Glenmore, has 10-foot ceilings. I don't have 10-foot ceilings, I have 9-foot ceiling. There's one room, 18 by 18, the main living room that has a 10-foot ceiling, the rest of it is 9-foot ceiling. It also states it has custom kitchen cabinets. My cabinets are not custom. Custom cabinets are defined as built on site by a custom professional cabinet maker. Mine are purchased out of a catalog, different sizes, base and hanging. Selected the colors out of the catalog. They're manufactured by Craft Aid or Craft Made. They were delivered and installed by the builder. So I don't have that. Those are 2 of the features that claims that I have.
Another minute, Mr. Schiller.
Say again, sir?
You have about 1 more minute.
Okay. Okay. I'll have additional comments regarding the assessor's comments for the rebuttal.
Okay.
But again, my assessment is I had a professional evaluate the home. And they looked at it and they said, there's no way that they could put my home on the market for $1.6 million. People would just walk by it. Realistic value is about 1.335 with an expected sale price of about 1.3 million. And what I'm appealing to this board is a request to adjust the assessed value to 1.3 and also direct the assessor's office to change the quality of the home from an A+, which it is not. I don't meet 50% of the standards to an A-, which is what the board is with the guide. Questions?
Yeah, for sure, for me, assessment. But we'll have questions after. So,
Okay.
all right.
Okay, so we do regret that we had made an error on this property. We did that actually wasn't 18 years worth of error. It was made in 2020. At some point in 2020 that was changed. And but we did make a correction, not just to this current year, but to the 3 previous years, which is all we're allowed by law to correct. That actually is to protect both us and the applicant. You know, if it was a change in the other direction, the law doesn't allow us to change 18 years worth of error if that was the case to our benefit or their benefit. So we do regret that error and we have fixed it to the extent that we're allowed to. Unfortunately, the appraiser who did the inspection on this property is no longer working at the county. She's gone on to another jurisdiction. She was a senior appraiser, so I can attest to that. Only our more experienced appraisers will do Glenmore, which can be a little complicated at times, even though it is a subdivision. But she is not here to testify to what she saw in the inspection, unfortunately. I'm not sure Mr. Shaliga's math about, the 19 things he doesn't have. I don't know exactly what he's.
Well, again, if you should take the time, I'm willing to cover them, but you're.
You can't speak during this portion of the.
But based on the experience of the appraiser who did the inspection, she felt that it was an A+. And unfortunately, like I said, she's not here to testify that exactly what she saw that caused that. And we also don't have interior photographs other than the one room that was unfinished that we documented. So I have to leave that at that. When you're looking at comparables for the subject, there are the owner provided a few comparables that are in the Scottish Homes section of Glenmore. Glenmore, we break it down into Glen M, which is the subject is in, which is kind of the general everything that's not on the golf course or not in one of the specialized parts of the neighborhood. Scottish Homes and Cottages are kind of special parts that have extra services. They have their lawns taken care of as part of just being in that section of the neighborhood. And so they have different styles of houses also in there, especially the cottages. So typically we break out the Scottish Homes and Cottages and we don't use those as comparables for the main or the golf. And then the preserve, which I don't think any of us have used any comps from there, but that's where the larger acreage parcels in the back of the neighborhood are. So those would not necessarily be comparable either, but neither of us are using those comps. But it is good to understand how Glenmore is set up to understand where the comps should come from. So the most appropriate comparables to use would be the Glen M properties and the Glen G, as long as you consider the Glen G land is typically more valuable because of its location on the golf course. And we've provided comparables here that indicates, based on the criteria that we have for the subject and for those comparables, that the assessment, if you were to adjust for differences between the property, the subject property and the comparables, that you would come up with a range of values that included that the 1,650,000. So based on the description, we feel that the value is appropriate for the subject. Now, the applicant got into a lot of the history of the values. Values have changed drastically in Glenmore. I can attest to that. Living there myself over the last 5-6 years, especially, where as part of the model, besides the grade and the style and all of that, we have a neighborhood factor, which we've talked about before in each neighborhood. Glenmore, a little more than 5 or 6 years ago, was down about 80%, or minus 20% from a normal rate, which for such a kind of vibrant neighborhood seemed odd, but it's the only way we could meet the values of the sale prices. We can match our values to the sale prices. Since then, that has changed to 100%, or are we at 105% actually? So let's take a look. I don't want to say the correct number since I'm under oath. We are at 105% for the Glen M, we're at 100% on the Glen G. So.
Can you explain that to me?
Yeah.
I was gonna ask.
I didn't understand that.
Oh, absolutely. So, basically, when we do all of the analysis of the model, I've told you before, we start with the style. We set a rate for the 1 story, the 1.5 story, the 2 story, and any other types. And then we adjust a few other parts of the model that are more minor, size adjustments or how much we put for decks and all of that. And then we go to the neighborhood level and we have to adjust the neighborhood to get to the sales from that neighborhood. That's kind of our local adjustment, so that we're not adjusting Glenmore based on what's going on in Farmington or what's going on in Earlysville. So that adjustment that we would make, let's say 5, 6 or more years ago, was around 80 to 85%. And then over the years since then, there was a lot of new construction in the back of Glenmore. There was, I want to say, 100 to 200 houses added in the back, and the whole neighborhood is kind of grown in value. It seems to have just improved overall, and that adjustment, in order for us to reach those values for the sales and to reach those ratios that we showed, that we share with you, we had to change that each year, up from 80 to 85 to 90, up now to 100, 105%. So
105% of what though?
oh, it's just a modifier. So
Okay.
if we put a value
Plug
of,
everything in and say,
we come up
because
with
you're in
a,
this neighborhood,
right,
you're 105%,
Right.
not 95%.
correct. So we on a value, on a property, come up with $1 million before we make a neighborhood adjustment. And then the sale of, specific property is at 800,000, we'd have to adjust it down 20, or if it's at $1,050,000, we'd have to adjust it up 5%. And that's not just one parcel, it's the conglomeration of all the sales. But that's basically where we are in Albemarle, in Glenmore, and where we are in this property.
Okay, thank you. 3 minutes for the rebuttal.
Regarding the document that was sent out, on the first page, it shows tax assessments for 2004, 5, and 6. The information for years 2004, 2005 are incorrect. They're lower than what I actually paid. I've got the actual statements here to validate that if you want to take the time to do it. Regarding the list of the 24 sale homes that was sent to me about a month ago, when the second document came up, 3 of the homes that are on here, the Glenmore Golf Club homes, were not included in this initial assessment. The assessor's analysis states the aspects of the sale most important are grade, style, size, and lot. Again, this goes back to the A1 grade. I don't meet the A1 grade. They're comparing my home to grade 1A homes, 3 of which are on the golf course. On this form that was sent out, that, I don't know, gentlemen, if you have this. Did you
We
see
have a
this?
black and white version of that.
Okay, if you go about halfway down, it says total basement square foot. Each home has square foot basement. 2 columns down, it says unfinished value, 63,000. The unfinished value. For 3 of the 6, there's no value. And then the finished basement value, 3 of the 6, it has no value. I don't understand this form. It appears to be some inaccuracies. Now, I'm going to give you, these are photographs of the 6 homes, and mine of the first one, that are considered in the assessor's evaluation. If you were to go inside those homes, I've seen pictures from the internet on them. They have spiral staircases, 10-foot ceilings, wainscoting, multiple kitchens, islands with stoves, and it's excessive.
Do you have some pictures of your house? Interior.
The interior? No,
Most of these descriptions you're talking about are interior. The classification you're arguing about, the A versus the B.
yeah,
Most of the descriptions.
I've got a list of them, of what they are. What which ones they claim I have, which I do not have.
And did the appraiser did get into your house?
She walked
She-
around and looked
okay.
around, no comments, I mean,
She
it was.
took pictures.
She did not take pictures, no. Only a picture of that unfinished room over the garage.
All right, I'm sorry to interrupt you.
No, that-
I want to know the question about the
Yeah, I-
pictures inside, because that seems like the crux of your argument.
It's. The error and the actual, I. The methodology that is used by the county to come up with an assessed value clearly is complicated. It appears that they're trying to find homes with a number similar to what they assessed mine at and saying that they're typical, that mine are comparable to those, and I would argue they are not. And evidenced by the curb appeal photographs that I presented you. Again, if you wanna, I can take photographs of the interior and send them to you, play the results of this meeting. I can give you, I'll give you this list if you wanna look at it. I've highlighted those things I do not have. Out of 40 items, I don't have 19.
Yeah, can you just, we don't need to go through all 19, but can you just highlight sort of the 5 that are the most? I mean, so you mentioned the ceiling height already,
Okay.
but just.
I don't have custom cabinets.
Yeah.
I don't have.
State Island.
In the kitchen. I don't have, do not have an island. I do not have an auxiliary power generator. I don't have outdoor kitchen, caretaker quarters, gate access, elevators, pools, detached garage. Or I don't have a view. I have 2 houses and woods in the back. My basement level is 8.6 foot ceilings, not 9 foot ceilings. I have Formica countertops on the bathroom and the kitchenette in the basement. I have no wainscoting, no manufactured corners inside. My doors are not solid wood. They're the wood frame with a flat panel inside that's probably in the center, which is probably 1/8 of an inch thick. They're not stained, they're spray painted white. All the interior doors are all what I just described.
Mr. Lynch, when the assessor went out and looked at the property and reaffirmed the A+1 grade, was there any specific commentary that she provided to support that?
The review note, I have it on the screen, but I can read it. Walk through the interior and exterior of the property. 10-foot ceiling, crown molding throughout house, coffered ceiling and living room. LVP flooring throughout, ceramic in bathrooms. Master has freestanding tub and separate shower, granite countertops, and custom cabinets in kitchen. Room above garage is unfinished, and then it goes on about that. And then the correction of square footage.
So, yeah, custom cabinets, I mean, so we have sort of a disagreement there.
Correct.
And the 10-foot ceilings, we have a disagreement there
that's
too.
right, yeah.
So, if, this is a hypothetical question, if, you know. If there were not custom cabinets, if there were 9-foot ceilings, that would drop would just changing those few items drop the grade of the home from an A+1 to an A?
I think Billy would be better answering that question.
I don't think so
I'm sorry,
necessarily.
I didn't hear your answer, sir.
I'm just passing it on to Billy.
Oh,
Not necessarily. I think it'd be a more detail that's involved in quality, and just those 2 items wouldn't be enough to say it would be a lower quality. You're looking at the overall design and construction, and knowing that the builder, Doug Kima, a high-end builder, I don't think that would be.
And
And it does seem like most of the homes are A+1, A Glenmore that you're looking at for compliments.
yeah, and we do, it's not that we're trying to show values are the same as his, we're trying to show description of property. So we're trying to show A+1 properties to compare to.
Yeah.
And we would include Doug Kingma on the A list. But we don't list every builder here.
Is there a? I mean, there's 40, I'm gonna assume you count it, if there's 40 of these, is there? Get over 50%,
Right.
how do you?
Do you
Of
mean,
the items,
do you mean 40 like bullet points?
I'm saying if there's 40 individual things described,
Right.
if you get to 39. You get to 30, I think that's still it's still an A1, it's still in
Right.
but you get below 50%, how do you?
It's hard to count them that way, and that's why I asked. I didn't know how he was counting them. Because if you look at extra features, not many houses in Gunmar are gonna even have a pool, because there's a community pool, that the clubhouse.
I think what you get.
So
I can see thin, and
so there are like 7 or 8 bullet points right there in extra features that may or may not be in the property, and it won't necessarily affect the grade. But you might see those in an A+1. The ones that are important really have to do with the design, the exterior finish, the architectural detail when it comes to the 10-foot or 9 and 10-foot ceilings, and the flooring, and then the other crown molding and built-ins and all that kind of stuff.
I have a question. Mr. Saliga said
Sure.
that it's required for a second opinion. Is that your?
Oh, yeah,
Added the guide.
Correct. So
It
yes,
says A+1, you need a second opinion from an appraiser.
so the appraisers will talk to each other. I mean, there's
Is
no.
that county practice for A?
Yes, yeah, the appraisers will generally, I mean, there's not like hey, I checked with this person and they agree with this. It's not like a checkbox. But the appraisers will, if there's any question about which way to go on a grade, they will go to another appraiser to get a second opinion, or to a supervisor.
I'd like to make a comment. The county guide specifies, it says A- means that the quality of the improvements do not have some of the features. It doesn't quantify a number. It's some. And nor does the list of 40 have values of some being more important or present than others. By the guide, they're all equal. I would argue that you're throwing them out, because a swimming pool costs a hell of a lot more than a kitchen cabinet.
Well, that's not a very good argument, because there's more houses with custom cabinets than pools, right? But of course, these are gonna be like, the incident rate of some of these features is going far higher.
But I mean, what's the definition of some? I mean, I'm interpreting the guide word for word.
But aren't you arguing that because you don't have all the features, you can't qualify as A+1? And if the guide says that some can qualify you,
That is one of my arguments, yeah.
A question. When a determination is made, whether it's A+1, A-1, is there a method for the homeowner to specifically appeal that? Are they informed it's A+1 or it's A? Is there a way for them to appeal that?
Not that alone, no. No, it's really the appeal process includes the entire property, the improvements and land.
Right.
So only as a part of that.
The problem I'm having here, for the 5 of us to determine is it A+1, A-1, A, first of all, we're not trained in that. Second of all, we don't have the list of 40. Thirdly, we've never been through the house. So when the appeal is based on that grade, it is very difficult for the 5 of us, I think, to overrule the professional who made that determination. So I'm having a great difficulty with that I don't think this board is in a position to determine whether the A+1 was correct or not. I think we have to accept that and move on to other factors. I don't know how the rest of you feel about that, but I find that very difficult for me to determine the A+1 was wrong. I don't know if it was wrong or not. I've got to trust that professional and look at other factors in the appeal.
You raised the point, when, I would assume that my home was evaluated as an A+1 back in 2008 when it was initially evaluated and assessed. I don't know. But when that determination was made as a homeowner, I was never given an opportunity, said, this is what we have on your home. Do you agree with this? Do you, that opportunity? Now, my other question is, sir, you mentioned in 2020.
Excuse me, you're finished, like you've used far more than the time that you were allotted, so we're in the deliberation phase now.
Okay.
So,
I just have one more question, which is just, when we look at the Glen M, Glen G, sort of the comparable properties. Are they a mix of A+1, A-1, or are they mostly A+1? You get a sense of.
No, they're a mix. They are a mix, yes. And then they'll actually include some Bs also.
Okay.
And the, whether they're in the Gulf or the regular, the grade doesn't matter based on which neighborhood they're in or which sub-neighborhood they're in. It's just based on the description of the property itself.
Well, I have a question about that. So basically, the ones that are in the golf course section, you're adding value to the land more than the.
Yes, it's mainly the land, but there is that multiplier that we talked about that also affects
The
them.
golf course is actually lower.
It actually lower, which is, seems kind of odd, but
I couldn't feel similarly to Frank. This is an odd one. It probably would, it's unfortunate that the appraiser is not here. That probably would have been helpful, but there's nothing could be done on that. But I think what you're pointing to is, I feel like it's, there's a lack of proof that could cause us to overcome the presumption in favor of the expert assessment. We don't have the interior pictures. We do have Mr. Schellige's testimony that he's missing some of these features. But the guide says that having some of them is sufficient to establish the grade. There's also, I presume, and it sounds like it is the practice of the assessor's office to have more than one appraiser look at it. So I kind of feel like I'm substituting or being asked to substitute my judgment for two appraisers without the benefit of the information they had to make their judgments. So I sort of feel similarly to you. I don't think there's enough evidence before the board for me to feel like that he's overcome the preponderance of the presumption of correctness in favor of the assessor's office on grade.
One more question. Not for today's hearing, but moving forward. Can he request your office to come out and reevaluate the grade for future? Is that something that can be done or not?
we can always come out and re-inspect the property. Yes.
There's some discrepancy. He says he doesn't have 10-foot ceiling.
Right.
He does have 10-foot fence, you know.
So yes, absolutely.
Okay.
He can request for us to come out and inspect his property. Any property owner can do that. Yeah. And we will share the details of anybody who asks us. We just can't share the details. We just can't send everybody all the details of their house. Most of these details are on GIS, so they can see the details at any time in any year in case they change.
And then also, something you said a minute ago about it was a grade A+1 back in 2009.
I presume that-
They have factored in the age. They have decreased it for the age of property.
I can actually answer
But
that.
if
It was an
if
A
it was
plus.
classified as an A minus and they factored in the age, the assessed value would be less. And to Mr. Mayo's point, he said it has some of them. The county guide says if it is lacking some, it should be downgraded. It doesn't say if it has some, it should be upgraded.
Mr. Norford, it was an A+2 prior to the consolidation a few years ago. So back in the period that he's talking about, it was actually an A+2.
What happened in 2020 that there was a change?
I don't know.
Earlier, you said in 2020.
I don't know, but the board that I can answer your questions later. Yeah.
Are we ready?
I don't have anything to vote.
Yeah, so that's not what the grade guide says. Talking about A minus, not A plus, which is what your home is. Yes, I'm ready. Is there a motion on this one?
Um. I motion that the assessor's valuation be reaffirmed.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, the assessor's office is affirmed with respect to application number 70, property ID 38298. Thank you for your presentation.
We done?
Yes.
Mr. Mayo, can we take 5 minutes?
Sorry.
This sounds here, all this. We and the investors,
We have a three. Oh, I'm sorry. Let me do that over.
I guess we.
Pause recording.
Yeah, no, no, yeah, so, all right,
Sorry, I gotta
thanks.
do that over.
I didn't realize that.
That's what. So we'll begin now with application number 30 for property ID 9730. Mr. Scott Dimmer and Miss Adrian Dimmer. Swear you in on the record. If you're gonna give testimony today, please raise your hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony, both oral and documentary, which you are about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? So 10 minutes, 7 minutes, then a 3-minute rebuttal.
Mr. Mayo, there are actually 3 properties that the Dimmers have.
Okay.
So I don't know, it certainly could talk about them all of them together or however the order the applicant wants to.
I understand. Mr. Dimmer, is there like a common nexus of fact or argument around your 3 appeals, or does it make more sense to handle them consecutively?
I think all together. So I have a write-up that touches on all of them combined. If you want to break them out from there into 3 separate discussions, we can.
Okay, very good. So let's proceed as if you're permitted to treat them all together. So it'll be application number 30, application number 31 and 32 for property IDs 9730, 9731, and 9722. And if we have specific questions on particular properties, we can address those.
And just so you know, it's on the screen. It's this property is the one with the house on it, and then this larger property that wraps around.
That's interesting shape. Okay.
It's
Yes. So curved arrow there. And then I don't know if you guys have the, right, if you want to follow along.
I think we do have your write-up, whatever you submitted.
There's just a few paragraphs at the end that I added in response to the documentation I received. Okay. So that won't be in there, but everything else.
But everybody speak up a little bit with the lawnmower action.
Sure. Sounds good, thank you.
so.
Okay, am I good to begin?
Yes, please.
Okay. Thank you for your time and consideration of my tax assessment appeal. I'm appealing the current assessment on the basis of fair market value. The 3-parcel lot at 330 Cardboard Drive is assessed at $1,065,300. However, it's sold on November 18th, 2025 for $943,500, $950,000 before the post inspection. Since Virginia assesses at 100% of the fair market value, that would equate to an assessment of $943,500. Also, there was nothing atypical about the sale that would give any merit to the sale price not being representative of the fair market value. In fact, the home sat on the market for almost 7 months before selling, and the sellers accepted our offer, even though they were in no rush to sell the home, as they had been renting it out for years, and we're going to continue renting it out if our contract didn't go through. It's also worth mentioning that the home sat in the market for 5 months in 2020 before being pulled from the market. Additionally, after living here and learning more about the condition of the home, I may have slightly overpaid. The HVAC unit is undersized for the size of the home and can't adequately heat the home in the winter, and have since found out it can't properly cool the home in the summer. Central ductwork doesn't even go to a large portion of the home. The office, the first floor bathroom, the foyer, the living room, the upstairs bathroom, and none of the basement, the main living area, the bathroom, and neither of the bedrooms. The HVAC unit is also over 20 years old. There's two separate walls in the laundry room that have damage / mold from water. The pipes to the washing machine are not insulated and froze over the winter. The fireplaces and the chimneys have a plethora of issues, and I was quoted over 30,000 for all the repairs. There's a radon issue in the basement. The roof is estimated to be around 25 years old, and the shingles at the ridge line are completely cracked, separated. The gutters are leaking in several places. There's several areas of rotted wood around the home, the front door, the shutters, the railings. The sunroom has water issues in one of the corners and the presence of mold. There's also mold in the detached garage, the upstairs bedroom, and the basement closet. There's a lot of brickwork that needs to be done, missing mortar, loose bricks, and cracks in the exterior walls. The water heater is 20 years old. The crawl space under the sunroom isn't encapsulated. The yard isn't graded properly on one side of the house, and water has leaked into the basement. There's 3 different pipes with leaks, and there's multiple windows that are either completely inoperable, have failed seals, or inoperable balances. That is some general information for the lot as a whole, but I'll also share additional info for each parcel and where I think they're over assessed. First, as far as the main parcel, the home in 1.6 acres, that is being assessed at 775,600. In my opinion, the most comparable sale, as far as specs and timing, would be 224 Carsbrook Drive, which sold for 565,000 on October 30th, 2025. 330 Carsbrook is 5 beds, 3.5 baths, 3 beds, 2.5 baths above grade. And 224 Carsbrook is 5 beds, 3.5 baths, all above grade. 330 Carsbrook is 4,237 square feet, 3,087 above grade. And 224 Carsbrook is 3,556 square feet, 3,196 finished above grade, 360 unfinished below grade. 330 Carsbrook is 1.61 acres, 224 Carsbrook is 0.76 acres. They both share similar interior and exterior features. With that said, given 330 Carsbrook's extra square footage and acreage, I would assess the main parcel at 330 Carsbrook at 700,000 to 200. With respect to the 9.13 acre parcel, that is being assessed at 131,500, which is $14,403 an acre. That acreage is almost completely unusable given the location of it and steep slope. A more realistic price per acre would be 8,000, and I think that is even generous, which would put the assessment at $73,040. For the 1.1 acre parcel with the detached garage and open shed, that is being assessed at 158,200. With the structures accounting for 22,700 of that, up from 12,900 in 2024. The 76% increase from last year at fair market improvement is a huge jump, especially given the current state of those structures. As far as the detached garage, multiple doors completely don't work. The concrete foundation has big cracks. There's mold, and part of the ceiling is collapsing. As far as the shed, there's multiple boards that are rotted / snapped. And the roof is leaking throughout / completely collapsing in one part to the point of being a safety hazard. I would assess this parcel at 145,000. All that to say, the sales price is the most obvious objective data point, highlighting it being assessed too high. It's also worth mentioning that the most recent report released by the Virginia Department of Taxation indicated the median ratio of assessment to sales price was 92.1%, which based off of that ratio and the recent sales price, that put the assessment at $868,962.00. Or if based off of the 96.48 ratio for 2025 sales in the neighborhood, it would be an assessment of $910,288.80. And here's all the stuff that I added after reading through the county's documentation. After reading through the assessment documentation provided by the assessor's office, I want to highlight what seems to be the 2 main areas of difference, plus offer 1 point of clarification. The 2 main areas would be the assessment of the condition of the home / comparables provided, as well as whether there is a buildable lot on the 9 acre parcel. As far as the condition of the home, I have previously shared those details. As far as the comparables provided by the assessor's office, we have 1 shared comparable, but then the other 2 are on quiet side streets or cul-de-sacs surrounded by similarly priced homes, in comparison to 330 Carsbrook, which is on a very busy street, surrounded by significantly cheaper. In my opinion, those are not the best comparables. As far as the 9 acre parcel, I don't think there is realistically a buildable lot. I took 3 data points all along the left-hand side of that parcel, and the average slope was over a 21-degree angle, or a 38.63 slope. The first measurement closest to the road was 69.4 feet of elevation change over 193.5 foot distance for a 19.74 degree angle or a 35.88% slope. The second measurement, about 75 feet ahead, was 72.7 feet of elevation change over a 186.6 foot distance for a 21.29 degree angle or a 38.97% slope. The last measurement, also about another 75 feet ahead, was 71.3 feet of elevation change over a 173.4 foot distance for a 22.33 degree angle or 41.07% slope. Additionally, the whole road frontage for that parcel has a concrete V ditch and guardrail between the road and the land. And then finally, one clarification around the multiple parcels tied to a single sale. My assessment for each parcel is strictly based on that standalone parcel and not its worth as part of the 3 parcels as a whole. For example, if I was assessing the worth of the 1.1 acre parcel solely in light of its value as part of the 3 parcels combined, I would assess it around 40,000. However, I know I paid a premium for that lot as part of the sale as a whole, which is why I have an estimated assessment of 145,000. I mentioned that to say we are both looking at the assessments in light of each parcel's standalone worth. Additionally, for that parcel specifically, the sellers tried to sell it for 160,000 in 2025 and it didn't sell. Again, thank you for your consideration of my appeal.
Thank you.
So we obviously disagree on a little bit of information here, but one of the things I wanted to point out specifically that Mr. Demmer raised was he's talking about this state's ratio study. State's ratio study is a study of our assessments in the year that the property sells. So it's basically just measuring the appreciation that's happened since we set the assessment to when the property sells in the year that follows. That's strictly a measurement that's used to determine educational funding that goes to, different jurisdictions in the state. It's not a measurement of the work we've done for that reassessment necessarily.
In other words, it should be low. Because of the fact that
We expected, the only time it's going to match is if the values aren't changing at all as time goes by. So I said, that's not really a way to look at the assessment and if it's correct or how it should be corrected. The other criteria of condition of the property, that's obviously much more important in the valuation of the property. The home itself, so just because obviously we've got 3 properties that we're talking about. We have it's a 1963 built home, which has had some updating over time. We have it in average plus condition. Average is basically in the same condition it was when it was built. Good means that there's been a lot of, kitchens and baths replaced, renovated. Excellent is completely renovated. And average plus has kind of been in between, and it represents some updating, some condition issues that are negative. But it's better than if the house was just built in 1963 with its original condition for a 1963 home. So I believe that we have that properly described. This is a B+1 home. It's a 1.5 story. I think our description is accurate. Katie is the one who inspected the property. And if you have any questions for her on the condition or the grade of the property, or we can certainly you can ask her that. On the other properties, the other parcels, the curved arrow shaped parcel, this is all R1 land. So this parcel, which I want to say has 9 acres. Sure, I'm looking at the right one.
Yeah, that's
This is nine, yeah, so 9 acres would be able to actually, technically allow 9 houses. Physically, you're not gonna be able to, we admit, we're not valuing this as a 9 lot possibility parcel, but there's no proof that you can't build a house on this parcel. Yes, there is slope. I mean, we see houses all over the county that are on slope. You have a walkout basement and some of those slopes are gentle and some of those are steep. So we have no indication that you can't possibly build a house on this parcel, this entire, 9 acre parcel. So I'm talking about the larger one.
Did you put some of the overlays on that?
Yes, and they're definitely steep slope. Sorry. Steven out of the way here.
It may be the case that technically you could, but economically it may not be attractive, and that's adjusted for by the topography.
That is adjusted for in the topography, exactly. So we're not valuing this as a full home site.
That's not.
So yes. What was that? So this is managed.
The blue.
Blue is managed slope. So it's not the red you can't build in. It's
How
just
would
not.
you get to it?
You have to access it from the road over here. And that's part of it. I'm sorry.
Is there an easement? It looks like,
No, I mean,
it looks like you gotta go through the parcel.
No, it has road frontage here.
Yeah, but you can't, that blue is the managed slope. It's really hard to get permission to build a driveway on that. I speak from experience.
Is it harder than building the house on it?
I don't think you can build a house on that lot. As a builder, I would not buy that lot for anything, except you bought a buffer. Yeah, right, your buffer.
Okay, so,
I hear you. Okay.
but this is how we're valuing it,
Okay.
as a single home site with challenges. And then this other parcel has no challenges.
No, that's right.
It's,
Can't argue that.
so,
You said it has what now? No,
no challenges.
No
I mean,
challenges.
yeah, we definitely agree there are slope challenges over here. With both the house site itself and the access to it. But this one, we don't believe has any challenges.
Are there any easements on your property?
Not that I'm aware of.
That provide access to that lot in the back? The arrow?
On your home site property where you live, or either of those two parcels burdened?
None that I'm aware of, no.
can you,
Of course, he could put an easement. He owns both parcels, so. I'm sorry, Mr.
could you give us, some idea of how you're decreasing the value
Oh,
of
yes,
that
sir.
9 acre piece versus, because of the challenges?
Yes, sir. Let me bring the 9 acre parcel then. We're reducing it by 50% over a normal home site. And then for the home site part.
Home site for one home?
For one home on 2 acres, basically a 2 acre home site.
Oh, sorry.
We're reducing it by
9 acre size because of all the other issues. You just
Yeah,
said one home site.
plus residual land. So we have also the rest of the land at a reduced value for residual, like we do normally in the rural areas. And not typically in an R1 zone, but we're treating it as the same as a rural area property. So we have a shape adjustment and a topography adjustment of minus 50% for the remaining rest of the land.
So you got the home site,
Mhm.
and you reduce that
By 50%.
50%.
Correct.
Theoretical 2 acre.
Correct.
Then you take in the remaining 7-ish. And you reduce that additional 50% because of
50%.
because of the
Right.
topography and everything.
Plus another 10%.
Shape.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
That's how we're doing it. I think the question is that adequate?
Anything else from the assessor's office?
I don't believe so. But unless you have questions.
I'd have some more, and. Is there anything else you want to add?
I do, one more thing, actually. We asked Mr. Demmer if he had an appraisal, since he just bought the home, and he indicated he did, but he wasn't willing to share it with us, so I don't know if there are any questions, about that appraisal that we. About that.
I guess just from my understanding, as far as the condition goes, if I understand it correctly. It's rated at an average plus, which is defined as being in a better condition. Than the home when it was originally built, is that correct?
Yes,
Oh,
that's what I understand.
it's not better than the home at the time it was built. It's better than a 1963 home right now if nothing was done to it.
Like an average one.
But an average for a 1963 home. Yeah, as of right now.
That's helpful, thanks.
You have.
Okay, yeah, that's the only thing I wanted to clarify.
So my biggest. The average condition, 18% reduction that I see, correct, on the.
Back to that.
For age.
Yeah, it's rated at 82% good.
Then yes, that means 18% reduction, correct, per age.
So the descriptions he's given me is. Seems there should be higher. Can you go through your problems with the condition of the house?
Yeah.
You know, yeah, that's the biggest. Thing that I've heard that in writing.
Yeah, I guess the real question is whether that's above or below the average expected for 1963 home.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I wanted to talk about it.
So you would like me to read it again or?
No.
We have, yeah,
I'm telling about.
so is the question, we would like the assessor's office to help us understand whether 18% is.
Yeah.
Is reasonable.
Okay, that I can answer.
Yeah.
So basically what we're talking about is the depreciation schedule. So what we do is we look at average condition homes. And when we do our sales study, we are looking at the ratios on homes built in the 60s. And what ratio are we getting? Are we coming up to 100% based on our current schedule, or are we coming up with 95 or 105? And if that's the case, then we adjust it up or down. So we do that for all of the all of the conditions: average, average plus, good, and excellent, and the ones below. And in our studies, if there is any difference there, we'll make an adjustment to the depreciation table. When it's and believe me, the depreciation is a lot less than you would expect for an older home, even in average condition, because the properties just don't sell for that much less just because they're older. They're typically well maintained, and if they're not, then we've got them in fair condition or poor condition even. So they maintain their value very well. But is that an adequate explanation? But the main part is that we calibrate that.
Yeah, I say how you calibrate your number, 18% or whatever.
Right.
So I just. Average versus fair, some of the things I heard make me think the condition is fair instead of average. Some of it that he described.
Currently it's average.
It's average plus. It's a little above average. And what he didn't mention was some of the positives, the renovation stuff that has been done since 1963. So, and that's kind of the
That's gotta
offset.
be a constant upgrade. The other, because deal with this. Renters don't take care of properties as well as owners do. That was a rental property several years.
It was a mix between an Airbnb and a rental for, as I understand it, since 2020, but I don't know for sure exactly their use over that time. I just know that they tried to sell it in 2020. They couldn't, and I think they just pivoted to Airbnb and renting it.
You expected.
I'm coming at this from a totally different vantage point. and I'll need my colleagues to tell me if what I'm about to say makes any sense at all. We normally look at sale price of comparables. That's the number one determinant as we do our work. Here we have the actual sale price of the three parcels just a couple of months ago. And yet the assessment is, I believe, 12% higher than that sale price. Why wouldn't we go with the sale price?
So we don't just go with the sale price, whether it's higher or lower. We use that sale as part of a whole group of sales to determine where we should be. And my judgment on multiple parcel sales is that they can be problematic because you're not talking about necessarily the highest and best use of each of the three parcels. You're talking about just those three parcels being sold together. So the seller and the buyer weren't necessarily motivated to treat them as three different parcels. They were motivated to just sell them as one group.
I was kind of thinking of the same theory, but coming down on the other side, like he's probably more willing to pay for that arrow-shaped parcel than anyone else, because the only use for it is as a buffer for someone who lives in the house immediately there. I understand the argument on the other side too, and maybe that makes the sale like less useful than it would be for a strict one house sold by itself. But I tend to agree with Frank. I mean, it's 6 weeks later.
Yeah.
It does seem to be supportive of the idea that at least one of these may be over assessed as of January 1. I tend to think it's the arrow parcel and that we may have a problem with I think maybe the topography is not strong enough based on what David said about its attractiveness as a building site. I mean, that looks like a very challenging place to try to site a home. And like the driveway, like you, as David pointed out, cannot get around the steep slope. Like it runs from the northern west boundary to the southwest boundary. So that would have to be solved. And I guess we're what, 100,000.
Yeah, and I think you have to, you can't assume that because the guy owns the property next door that, because you got these individual parcels to have to be assessed, they have to be evaluated individually.
150.
So whether he owns the parcel next door and can give an easement is relevant. So it's not just accessibility, but building a road on that slope is incredibly expensive.
We have a lot of things.
Like I said, if that was the very last piece of land in Albemarle County, I'd like to buy it.
But we have a lot of things we're speculating on.
Yeah.
You know, would this work? Would that work? What's the condition?
But I think
What's
you're
the
right.
one, what's
fact
the
that
one
it's
thing
sold-
that we know?
Right.
We know the sale price. It wasn't very long ago. I understand what you're saying. It was on the market, you say 7 months. So it was not a distress. It was not a, there's no reason to, in my mind, to discount that sale. That's the one thing we know for sure. I don't understand why we wouldn't assess it at the 950.
Did it sell all, was it marketed and had to be sold all on three altogether?
The listing was just, I didn't even
Three
really know
listings
that it was one listing. Throughout the process, they did mention like, if you're interested in buying the other parcel for like 160,000, we're willing to sell off the 1.1 acre buildable lot. But there was no like formal listing. It was just one listing for all three parcels. That's all.
Motion. Hey, yeah.
Yeah, we're ready for motion.
I would make the motion then to lower the assessment to 950,000
I only ask that instead of, you're talking about a combination of three.
of all three.
Yeah, that you identify which parcel that you would actually adjust, and if possible, how to adjust it.
That
I'm not saying not to go to 950, I'm just saying we need to.
I would need somebody.
Let's
Well,
start
now
with the
they
nine,
do
let's
that.
start with the nine.
I reduced the arrow one to 1,285. Want to get to that number, which I'm okay with. And leave everything else the way it is.
Yeah.
The arrow parcel?
Number 32, application number 32. Won't know it, but
It's not in the right.
that's what I'm suggesting.
So that's a 9.13 acre
You're trying to
parcel.
get to the nine.
I mean, I think the most, I don't think that thing's buildable, sellable. I think he gets to pay $31,000 value for a buffer. That's in my opinion, I think that's its value. That'll kind of align with what you were talking about. That's, the assessor's gone and looked at the land, I mean, the improvements of the house. We've gone through this already in the previous one. The presumption is that they're correct in their evaluation of its condition and all that stuff. So that's where I'm. That's where I was.
Can I just say one thing? Katie, everything that I shared, because I didn't share that with you when you were there. Like, everything that I shared, were you aware of those things when you provided your data when rating the average plus condition? I also wasn't aware of all this. I also wasn't aware myself of all these things when Katie came out. As I'm living there and finding these additional nuggets.
Yeah,
He's thinking. What was the question?
where,
She asked.
we at question time now, or?
Well, this was part of my question too, was, were you aware of those conditions that he described in your inspection?
Very few of them.
So we're gonna adjust the value of the buffer lot.
That's what I'm suggesting.
And so it's some, and we're gonna do it in the way that it's going to persist, right? So we wanna make sure this stays.
Yeah, that's right. We need to select them how to properly get it to that.
So it's not just a numerical, we wanna make sure we change the,
So what was your motion on the 9.13 acres?
so it's gonna be something like change the requirement from 50% to 90%.
Yeah.
So
Something
that
like
would
that.
get the value down.
Yes.
Okay.
I think that's in my opinion, that's the one that I can fully justify, if you will, that parcel is just really
The strongest.
an
Okay.
unusable piece of land.
So, if under the assumption that this land was just all part of this parcel, we would assess all of this land as just residual extra land. And of course, we would reduce it like we're doing for the steep slope. So I've just changed it to just the residual land at 9.13 acres with a 50% reduction. And it's coming up to 82.6. So the value on that parcel, just based on this type of change, went from 131.5 to 82.6.
50,000 off. And I understand what you're getting at there, like that's gotta be the base, that's gotta be the bottom, you stripped out all the home site value.
Correct.
It can't be less.
We're now calling it unbuildable.
But is it actually gonna be worth less than it would have been if it was just part of, if it was attached to the?
The way I've set it up now, it's the same as if it was all one
Okay, the
parcel.
same.
We're not adding for any ability to build another house. We're just saying these
Those are
extra
the
9
maximum
acres.
reductions that you put elsewhere.
No, that's not the maximum, just based on a 50% reduction.
So you can increase the 50%.
Absolutely. We would not typically have a higher number than 50% for managed slope like this.
I mean, when you typically look at the 50% reduction for whatever reason, most of the time it's the back of an end of a piece of property. It's a corner. It's not literally the entire shape. And I think that the difficulty of, even if you could get permission to build on those critical slopes. Now, if you have a site, the county probably, you can force them to let you, and you just have to mitigate your impact. You're gonna be running on that slope with a cut slope at a road that's gonna cost you more. It's gonna cost you $100,000. I mean, so this is what I'm getting at. Like, I understand what you're saying, it's like 50% typically, but it's also normally like 25% of the property in the back half, because that's usually how stuff is broken up. This one, you know, let's be clear, some human did that because that's junk property and they didn't. We all, I do subdivisions, I understand why you do it, but it is what it is, and it's the condition we have.
Because at this point, we're not talking about development at all. So,
Right.
so there's no even thought of how much it would cost to develop it. It's just how much is that land worth just as extra land for, you know?
I mean, right now, I mean, if somebody were to come in and we get to the point where we're not expanding the growth area and somebody needs to buy that. You know,
So what
the
was
price of things will go up enough that it's worth spending that money on those infrastructure.
Like in 2004, 2005, this property would be something that might sell.
what was the number that you came
Maybe.
up with?
I saw worse. The number I came up for this, with this parcel was just based on this criteria was 82.6.
Was how much?
82.6.
That's a 50%.
82.6.
Correct.
So what if we put it
Motion to
75?
lower that one to 82.6.
That doesn't get us all the way to 100.
That does not bring you down to the sale price.
I think some amount over the sale price is appropriate,
I
I
think
mean,
so.
the 6 weeks of appreciation followed, right?
Because of the group sales as a group, I think you have to put something back on for each one being individual.
Can you put 75% down instead of 50?
At a minimum, you would have had greater transaction costs to do the 3 separate. There's got to be some efficiency.
Oops. 0.25 is really what we're looking for. 41.3. So what was that?
$1,000.
About 90 bucks.
90 over the
9,000.
115, that would be acceptable to me.
So that brings the total.
So, yeah,
$90,200 is the reduction. Yeah.
And that brings it to about 975,000, something like that. Right,
yeah.
100,000 would be 965, so.
Did you have an appraisal done of just your home or the other 2 parcels as well?
It's just not for that address, which is all 3 parcels.
Why didn't you want to share it with the appraiser's office?
Yeah,
Still ask.
I don't think that they're factoring in everything that the county knows that I know in their appraisal, and I don't think it's accurate.
Off the record, I'm giving you an opinion, but I think it raises something.
This is assessment.
So do you have the final figure for the 3 parcels together?
Oh,
Do you make that adjustment?
We're just gonna do 32 change, right? We're gonna leave the other 2 where they are and
Just do that.
reduce
Just
the one,
Okay,
the arrows,
All right, so let's take the,
Can I
are we,
ask a question first, sir?
as long as it doesn't get argumented.
yeah, no argument in question.
So anything to address as far as the potential discrepancies with the condition?
We're not gonna do that, but I think you need to make your argument next year. Just,
You could ask them to come and reassess
yeah, yes.
the condition and
I mean, these are also things that you said you're now just discovering, so I think it's there that you wanna have walk them through and show them, and maybe you could get that condition reduced.
Okay, it's a very arduous process. To go
That's the
through
way
this.
to do it.
So is there any way to take those things into consideration now?
I mean,
Also, with the data point of the sales price and there being additional weight, as opposed to being now over a year removed from that.
I would just say, I'm comfortable with what we've done. You may not be 100% happy, but we're about to vote on it. I'd just encourage you to make your argument with the assessor for next year.
And then just one last question. I think you guys were getting at this, but the changes that would potentially be approved with the 9-acre parcel. What guardrails are there for next year, or the year after? Not seeing a,
there are none, and there can be none by law.
Yeah, beyond the
The
scope.
board has no control over anything but this year. My
That would
office
be a
controls.
central, just bring it back again next year.
If they decided they wanted to bump it back up to what it was before, you'd have to come back in here and get it made correct.
Correct. And I think I would have an uphill climb.
If I'm still.
Yeah.
Okay, we all get pretty cool.
All right, so I withdraw my motion. What did we just finally decide we were doing?
I think your motions will be for each, but to answer your question, 975,100 is what I came up with for a total value of the three.
So let's take them one in order. The first one is application number 31. This is the improved lot. Is there a motion with respect to application for 31?
Motion that we affirm it.
Okay, a second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes unanimously to affirm the assessor's office assessment of application number 31, property ID 97. Oh, yes. No, 31 is,
That was application number 30.
Yeah.
that was right. Yeah, 31 is the approved lot, and then we'll do that one next.
Yeah.
So 31, the assessor's office is affirmed. Property ID 9731. Is there a motion with respect to application number 32?
Did you mind if I ask one more question?
No more questions.
We're done.
Which one's 32?
32 is the slow plot.
9 acres. What did we come up with on that?
41,300.
I make a motion, we lower the assessment on application number 32, is that right?
Yes.
To how much? 48,000.
41,300.
41,300. I'm sorry, I can't.
Okay, there's a motion to reduce application number 32, property ID 9722 to 41,300. Is there a second for that motion?
Second.
Okay, thank you. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? That motion passes unanimously. Application number 32, and that leaves application number 30. Which is property ID number 9730. Is there a motion with respect to this application?
Affirm the assessor.
Thank you, Mr. Friedman. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Application number 30, the assessor's office is affirmed in its assessment of that parcel property ID 9730. Thank you very much for your presentation. Thank you.
Can we take a moment break?
Certainly. Yeah, we're ahead of schedule.
Our next hearing is at 10, but they probably will arrive 15 minutes early.
Okay.
So we have,
Okay.
end this. County assessor. And go ahead.
I think I've already given this.
No, Brent said came last night in county assessor. But that was, I don't know if that was. Here's the package I will present tomorrow at the next hearing. Please provide copies to the VRE members.
It will happen. Does that work?
Came last night at 6:03
That happened.
Yeah, no, I'm fine with that.
You know why they.
I do say there's any stuff, right? The difference between selling all three together and what each one would be worth individually.
No, it's commercial. You would pay. Well, in residential.
Well, have them make notes, have all of us.
Oh.
All of our seen.
No.
None of us.
Yeah, that's the same. So I'd say. I think that was part of this.
The one lot,
Got a lot.
that has buildings on it. That
It is definitely-
that's good to go. You can just let it.
It was actually seen.
I wanna know what engineer tree.
Yeah, exactly.
What's on the plat?
That we received this through email last night. So this is right. That's just great what deals. Yeah, so this is, yes, that appraiser. So the appraiser himself is going to appear apparently. And he sent this, are we recording? I believe we are, but I don't know if Stephen has paused us or not.
Well, thank you. First question I asked you. Or question. If contractors. This is all just what you did.
Yeah.
After the last time.
You know what? What's somebody's willing to tell you looking like? Kind of sort of. So. All right, we're gonna continue on with the last three applications we have today, which are 41, 42, and 43. We have someone here to speak for the applicant.
Yeah, Ms. White-Hagan, who's going to speak. Will come up and are there gonna be more than two, I feel?
I'll come up. I don't know.
Full chair. Okay, I don't know what that's. Nice to see you.
So should we just start, or how do you guys want to go?
So I just have a request that we start with the main parcel, the large parcel, and then discuss the two lots that are used as access after that. But that's just my proposal. So whatever the board wants to do and what the applicant wants to do. And I also, because there's three different, I don't know timing wise, how you want to handle it.
Okay. Looks like about 99% of the value is tied up in a large parcel. It would make sense to start there in my mind, video projection.
Not at all.
So that'd be application number 43. So anyone who's going to give testimony today or present documents, go ahead and swear you in. If you could just raise your hand. You solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony, both oral and documentary, which you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Good. Okay. Thanks. And if you could just introduce yourself on the record before you start, that would be helpful. The distribution of time for each application is 10 minutes for the applicant, 7 minutes for the assessor's office, and then a 3-minute rebuttal period. We can sort of strictly adhere to that for each parcel, but sometimes there's a common body of fact. It's more effective to lump the time together. Do want to clarify that there should not be questions asked of the board or of the assessor's office. It tends to get us off track. But information presented, arguments presented, and we may have questions for you to help us understand your position.
Sure.
Okay.
All right, well, morning, gentlemen. My name is Woody Fincham. I'm a real estate appraiser here in the area and was working for Mrs. White here to, we did some appraisal work on the estate last fall. And she approached us once she got her assessment, I guess, early part of the year, and asked us to take a look at it because it's quite a delta between our appraisal and the assessment. And first and foremost, thank you for letting us come in and present. And the package that I sent over last night that all of you seem to have really addresses all three parcels. So I think we can probably handle all three parcels really collectively. So it shouldn't be an issue with on. But ultimately, there's a couple of things here that seem to be in question, at least from my position. And I was the previous assistant assessor here in Albemarle. Prior to that, also the deputy assessor in Suffolk, Virginia, and then staff assessor down and or appraiser for the assessment office in Newport News. So I understand assessment theory pretty well. And I'm not making an argument here on uniformity, but I am making one and placing this property into the universe of property that's been placed into, because it's not uniform to compare it to other parcels that have such a difference in scale. You know, a lot of the assessment ratio information that was sent over to Mrs. White when she requested it to support the assessment are a bunch of properties that are much smaller, and they're not in the same comparable class as the subject property. The subject property is an estate level property. It's large acreage, and I understand why it was put in the group that it's put in, because it's a locational thing. But we have a lot of acreage parcels around the county, and the same consumers who shop for these types of properties or would pay for these properties are not going to consider what's going on in the very local market in the West or the other areas like that. They're going to look at other large acreage parcels around the county. It's a very large geographical spread that these consumers usually consider.
And I just think that the value is just overstated. A good portion of this property is under water protection or water buffer zones where you can't build on it. So using an acreage rate across the entire property would be inappropriate. There's quite a bit of critical slope on the major parcel, or the main parcel rather. And then when you get into the two smaller parcels, they are access to the larger parcel. So while yes, they do have some marketability, one of the parcels is completely encumbered with the fact that it has an access across it. You would have to spend tens of thousands of dollars in order to move the driveway to another spot, which comes down into, if you're looking at highest and best use of the property, it comes down to financial feasibility. No one's going to pay full market value for these lots, which is why we appraised it as one economic unit, because they are collectively one economic unit right now. And the Commonwealth of Virginia will not allow anyone to landlock a parcel. So if you built on both of these lots, one of them you probably could build on, but you would have a driveway moving directly behind wherever the structure was placed on the lot. So I just think that that overall the property, and that's how usually these large acreage parcels transfer in the market, is they're going to transfer collectively, not going to transfer individually. It would be possible to do so, but they'd have to cut another entrance to the property. There is another entrance point on the property, but again, we're talking tens upon tens of thousands of dollars in order to make that feasible. So whatever anyone would pay for that piece of property would be market value minus the cost plus entrepreneurial incentive. Basically, it's going to render the lot just junk land. Basically, that's what someone would pay for it. Just got one more point here. I want to make sure I got them all to you. I mean, one of the comps that were used for the large parcel, Bar Manor, that's a very nice piece of property. And no offense to Mrs. White, but the structure that's on this, the main structure on the main house on the large parcel it's in a good state of disrepair. And I think calling it an A1 or A minus, whatever they determined it to be at the assessor's office, is overstating the quality of the home. You easily have $500,000 worth of renovation work that go on in that property. The atrium that's attached to the property is an outdated thing that most people, that when they buy a property like this, it's the first thing they tear down. When you're looking at someone shopping for a piece of property like this. So I just don't think it has the marketability appeal to the overall market that it's being rated at right now. So those are the two things that I wanted to mention. So if I'm happy to answer any questions.
I think we'll hear from the assessor's office and rebuttal here and maybe some questions after that. Thank you, Mr. Bishop.
All right, thank you. So we do disagree with the appraisal done by Mr. Fincham in this case. That's not always the case because Mr. Fincham did the appraisal on one of the properties on Wednesday, and we were very close in our value to what he had come up with. However, one of the issues that we do have with the appraisal is that he uses properties as comparable sales that are in conservation easement. And the majority of the value on this parcel, the subject parcel, is the land. There are 3 homes on the parcel. So there are 3 home sites, but there is also a lot of other land, 204 total acres. So we're basically assessing 198 acres that are outside of home sites. We adjust them for floodplain. So we agree. We don't disagree that there's floodplain on the parcel, but we do adjust for that. We adjust for topography issues also. And I'll bring this up so you can see. So this is the parcel. This floodplain shows over here in the kind of bluish green. And then the reds, this is, critical slope that's unmanageable, as opposed to what we talked about earlier. So all of that is the reality of the property, and we believe we adjust for that in our land value.
Can you go through those adjustments real quick?
Oh, sure.
You know what? He just told us not to let you.
That's fine. Okay, I'll finish and then I can.
I'm trying to follow the rules.
Okay.
I'll write it down to ask them.
However, when you're talking about So there are issues with the land here value-wise, with the critical slope and the floodplain. However, there's no restriction on the development of any area outside of that critical slope or floodplain. But if you're looking at a conservation easement, there is no development possible on those parcels. When you're talking about 204 acres, I think, on this parcel, you're able to subdivide a parcel like that typically into 21-acre parcels. I don't know if there are any small lot development rights, which you can do down to 2 acres apiece or not, but typically your development potential is up to 5 small lot development rights if none have ever been broken out, and all 21-acre parcels, however many you can fit based on the acreage. So a normal acreage parcel in the rural areas can be subdivided, has that potential. A conservation easement parcel, contrarily, has none of that unless there might be 1 or 2 in the conservation easement itself. They're all separate agreements. Typically, they erase all development rights when they put the conservation easement on. They give up rights of their property, so they're not the full bundle of rights like this property would have. They have been paid in some way, it could be through tax credits, to put that conservation easement on those properties. That's why we believe those conservation easement properties are not appropriate to compare to the subject, which is not. There are appraisers who focus on conservation easement appraisals, and they use conservation easement sales of properties with conservation easements on them to determine what the after conservation easement value will be of the land. And they use those that are unencumbered to determine the before value. So there's a definite difference between those 2 types of sales. When it comes to the improvements on these properties, when you're in a rural area, you can have 2 to 1,000 acres, and you can have a small, kind of a self-built home or mobile home up to a mansion. There's a wide range of improvements. So we provide in our model, and I don't think it's really much of a difference between what a fee appraiser doing single property appraiser and mass appraiser would do, is we're trying to value those improvements that actually exist by using comparables that have those types of improvements in the land that's similar to that. So I believe we have adjusted the land appropriately based on critical slope and floodplain. I believe we have described the improvements appropriate for the 3 houses on this property. And I do want Dana, who did the inspection on this property, to talk about the homes, because the main home we are calling an A, I think it was A minus. And I want to make sure that there's a difference, that we understand the difference between grade and condition. You can have a mansion or a luxury home or a quality home that's in poor condition, but it still has the features and finishes of in this case, an A-1 home. So however, we have under depreciation, we have 20% functional for layout of this property, of lack of full air conditioning and heating. It definitely has issues, and I believe we are adjusting for those issues. We do it separately from the actual depreciated. We don't call it fair or good because we're pinpointing the issues separately from that condition rating that we are reducing for. But we are addressing for those. And Dana, if you just want to, we have a few minutes left of our time. So
Okay, sure. Louis and I visited the property together, and Ms. White's nephew, who I think is over there, showed us around, and he was very generous with access to every part of our property that we needed to see. So we did a walkthrough on the interior of the house. We described it accurately, we feel, as an A-1, which was lowered from an A+1, which is where it was before the review. Louis and I looked at it together. We measured it completely. We felt like the rock construction, the copper roof, the general construction of the main part of the house did qualify it as an A-1. We lowered the grade because we felt like the layout really did not rise to the level of a higher grade of A, with kind of some smaller rooms and a little bit got kind of choppy back in the kitchen area. And we did, recognize that in our functional obsolescence that we took. But yeah, we did think that the A-1 was much more appropriate than the A+ where it was before.
But it definitely has features of an A house.
It does. We felt that it was in the A range for sure.
Okay, I have some pictures up on the screen of the exterior. Did you take some interior photos?
We did take some
Are they,
interior photos.
So if the board is interested in seeing them, I will. Scroll down. Sorry.
As you're doing, just a related question, so there is sort of the main structure, which I can see sort of, has an improvement value of just over $1 million, but there's also quite a few outbuildings. If you could sort of talk about how we came up with the value for the outbuilding.
Right.
As well.
On the first outbuilding, which could be referenced as dwelling number 2, is that what you're talking about? The
Yeah.
cottages?
I'm just looking at the numbers right now, so we have an outbuilding value of 435 and an additional dwelling value of 154, so there's another,
Okay,
$590,000 of
so the
value besides the main structure.
right, the outbuildings consist of a detached garage with a finished apartment over. And also attached to that garage is the atrium with an in-ground pool inside. There's a large metal utility building kind of at a distance from the house, and then a smaller metal utility shed.
And there's a shop.
And
I
there's,
see.
there's a frame shop as well. It's got an overhang that was damaged by a falling tree.
Right, so when we talk about outbuildings, that's anything separate from one of the main buildings. So when we're talking about the building value, it includes the value of all 3 of the houses.
Okay.
So all added together.
Hold on. Okay.
Say 3 of the houses or 3 of the structure?
The 3 houses, there are 3 actual house dwellings on this property. So that 1.1 million, I think it was, refers to the total of all 3 of those. 1.199 million is the total of all 3 of those dwellings added together. And then the outbuilding value of 435,400 is the total of all of those other the outbuildings, including the pool and the garage and the living area above the garage, all of those items.
The other houses besides the main house are deeded all together. It's all deeded together, not separate.
This is all on one parcel.
It's all on-
Yes, that's correct.
Was the atrium that Mr. Fitchett mentioned counted as a sub area, or is that it seems like there's a disagreement about whether that's
There's 2 different atriums on the property. One's an enclosed porch attached to the main structure. That's the one I was referring to.
got it. But are you guys, you're perceiving that to be like part of gross livable area, right?
No,
No.
No.
Got that.
I actually, did I open the right one? Interior photos. That's the main house. Okay, the pictures on the screen are the interior of the main house.
so this is the living room. That's the room that we entered into. That was the first room that we entered in the house, the living room there with the fireplace, kind of an entry hall style of living room.
Trying to see. There's
We had an issue with the kitchen layout, and what Pete is showing here, this interior photo here is part of the kitchen, and you have to pass through a kind of a former porch that's now in our finished area.
It's the next
From-
picture.
This area here. So the kitchen takes up 2 different rooms,
Right.
yes, and you have to pass through another room to get to
which is what we're adjusting for in our
in the.
depreciation, extra depreciation.
So just to, I just want to make sure that I'm working with the correct numbers. So the value of the main house is, and then there's an additional dwelling value, but just for the main house, it's $1,044,500. And then there's a separate additional dwelling value of 154. So that's the other livable structure that's on the property. If you're just combining those together and then
Yes, it's two cottages.
Two cottages, right, but however, I believe the. E plus one.
Yeah, the other breakout is.
Oh, I think I was actually looking at something I'd opened earlier. Sorry about that. Okay. Yes, 1,044,600 for the main house. 63,700 for the second house, the second cottage, or the second house, which is a cottage, and then 90,800 for the second cottage.
and then so the outbuilding then is just a metal barn with a workshop? Is that?
So there are several different outbuildings that are not part of the main house and not cottages either. So the first one would be a detached garage that has a finished apartment over.
Okay. Do we have a breakdown of the value of how we came up with?
We do. Let me pull that up. Are these all on the first part? So,
Yeah, and some of them, we're gonna have to add them up for you, but scroll down.
well, I can tell you
Oh, okay.
each one. So we've got two Butler buildings, which are a total of 106,700. I'm trying to maneuver on the screen here. A storage,
I apologize for my lack of knowledge. What's a Butler building?
it's a certain style of building.
It's like a metal
Looks like a
barn.
Yeah,
Frame with metal siding barn.
Right.
Storage.
exactly so.
Butler is the company that.
They come and get it.
Oh, okay, so it's not for the Butler. I got it.
These are 2,400 square feet, so they're sizes.
Size, yeah.
The storage building at 3,600. The overhang actually doesn't have any value. Shop is frame heated by wood stove, just for part of the description, 29,300. Living area over the outbuilding, that's over the detached garage, is 32,100 just for the living area part of it. The garage itself is 38,200. And there's a porch attached to that. I'm assuming it's attached to that garage and the living area. I don't personally know where the porch is, but it's $4,200. It's in the shop. And then there's $400 for a deck for the garage apartment.
Just to focus us, tell me if I'm wrong. Mr. Fincham, the appellant, you're not disagreeing on the assessment of the structures. That the disagreement is about $1 million, but that's all on the land value.
Some of it's in the structure as well. I do believe that calling this in the level of A at all for quality. Now, the way they do it, they have a model they have to work with, and it's very, very complicated. I'm not disagreeing with how they're doing it. I just think that maybe the functional obsolescence adjustment they're putting on it is probably too low. 20% on a property like this. I mean, the main great room on the manor home doesn't have heat. So, I mean, anybody who's going to buy a piece of property like this is likely either going to tear it down or they're going to remodel it, and they'll spend a significant amount of money. That's a $500,000 or more remodel on that property that needs to happen. And that's what most consumers in the Albemarle market overall, how they would look at it. And this is the type of property that I specialize in. And to Mr. Lynch's previous comment about conservation easements, I also was the
Before we go into that, can I just stick it on the buildings for now, because I'm because I like Mr. Freeman, I just want to make sure we're focused in on where the
We'll get to that next
are.
My notes indicate a disagreement on the land value of about $1.1 million.
There is a disagreement on land value. There's
Which
also
accounts for almost all of the difference.
it would, yes, but I mean, we have to look at the property as overall. You can't look at it as just one component versus another component.
Understood. And then in terms of everything you've described in terms of the depreciation adjustment only applied to the main structure. So is it the case that because I'm just looking at the outbuildings, that's another $435,000 of value. So there's no specific complaint with that number, is that correct?
I mean, if you compare my appraisal to what they've done, there's definitely a difference in opinion. There's a delta there. Once you get into these
Is it small?
well, when you get into these secondary structures, they don't contribute on a cost basis. And oftentimes with assessment models, they use cost guides and they depreciate the numbers, and that's how they do it off of a multiplier. It works in a lot of cases, but when you get into properties like this, these are so atypical that they really kind of break a model. These models don't work well with these types of properties.
Okay, so, all right, so I'm gonna say the same thing Mr. Friedman already said, which is when I look at the main structure in the appraisal provided by the county, it's just over $1 million is the value they've assigned to that structure. And so, how much is that above where you think it should?
I honestly don't have a copy of my appraisal in front of me, so I can't give you a specific number, but I don't think there's a large delta there.
Okay, and so again, I mean, I'm gonna say the same thing.
It's on the land.
It comes down to the land is really where all the
And I'm happy to talk about that here in a few if you want.
Yeah, okay. So, it's still your question, let's talk about.
land.
Well, he gets to.
Yeah,
Do you want to give your rebuttal and then we've answered?
Mrs. White had something she wanted to bring up real quick, so I'm gonna let her do so.
So I apologize if I'm not using the right terms. My area of expertise. So my sister Lori and I are inheriting this property together. And so we have spoken with the surveyor because we're trying to figure out how to do this. And he had some really negative things to say. One, in response, it can't be subdivided. He says there's a possibility that you could do a family subdivision, but that's not even guaranteed. And the reasons that he gave us were that there's no, I believe he's called them building rights there, that the structures that are on the property have essentially used the building rights. And in fact, to the degree that if we tore one of the cottages down, we would not be allowed to replace it with a different structure. I don't understand why, but he said, whatever you do, don't tear them down because you won't be able to replace them. The other problem with being able to subdivide it is that the access road is not wide enough for being able to reach multiple, 12.5 acres, which we wouldn't be allowed to do, but it's only 8 feet wide. He said it would have to be, I think he said a minimum of 10 feet. The problem is that it crosses the floodplain. And so we will not be permitted to widen the road. So there'd be absolutely no way that we could widen that road because it crosses the floodplain. So those are just the two things the surveyor told us. That the only possible way to do any kind of subdivision would be a family subdivision, and that would not be guaranteed. We'd have to get approval for it, so.
Which usually, as most people know, if you're gonna do something like that, you're gonna have to get a variance from the county, and that's gonna require a lot of voting and a lot of money with an attorney and a surveyor. So you're talking you're probably another $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 into this just to have a familial subdivision. And I'm glad Mr. Lynch brought up the fact that we were using conservation easement comps, because the reason we were is because this is de facto under a conservation easement because you can't develop on the property. So treating it like the land that you can develop, I think is just mistreating the property completely. And to speak to conservation easement, my position when I left here was to take a position at the state tax department as the principal conservation easement and historical facade reviewer for the state tax department. I understand conservation easements at a level most don't. So I don't think there's any issue with using comps like that and I will also mention too, that if you look at the resale market of conservation easement comps in Albemarle, which is the most conserved county in the Commonwealth, there's rarely any impact to value on the resale market, because if you buy in a district where there are conservation easements and this property abuts a large conservation easement, they don't, it's just something that people have on their property. It helps them pay lower taxes. And as Mr. Lynch also alluded to, a lot of folks can take these tax credits and sell them on the secondary market and make money with them. So, you know, a large conservation easement, if you're losing a lot of development rights and buildable rights, then yes, that's all money that you can make on it as a tax credit. So, but I mean, it's not something that really impairs value once you see them on the resale market.
I have a question. Seems like a fairly big discrepancy here. Can it be built on? Can it not be built on?
Oh, I don't think we're gonna be able to resolve that. I don't think anybody's here that can actually speak to that. I'm sorry, what did you?
Zoom out.
Oh, zoom out. Oh, sorry. Where did it go? There it is.
Your driveway comes off of Chestnut Ridge Road. That's a public road.
Yes.
The White Farm is just your driveway.
Anything else from the applicant?
So I was gonna say, one other thing, Mr. Finch mentioned there was another potential access point, but according to the surveyor, that's also a problem. It's not mine, it's off of it itself would be off of a private road, so you'd have a private road coming off a private road, and he's not sure DDOT would okay that. And it goes through the floodplain, so we have the same exact problem, we'd be going through a floodplain. It's 25 years.
Yeah, my whole point of bringing that up was that one of the two smaller parcels that act as the access entry to the property is completely impeded by the driveway. The other one does have a buildable envelope on it. But again, you're talking about a piece of property that if you built on it, you would have a driveway that accesses all these structures on the large parcel that you have to drive right by the house to get it because there's no other place to put them. So it's just a fact of one economic unit. You're not going to be able to split these up into individual parcels and do anything with them without relocating the access. And that's going to take a ton of money. And then you have that when an investor buys a property like this, they're also going to look at their risk. There's a high risk that the county would not approve them to do any of this, or VDOT would approve it, or the Army Corps of Engineers, because you have to cross a water buffer. So there's a lot of variables here. And most investors, if they're going to buy something like this, they're going to buy it at a very low price because of the inherent risk that's here.
Good, anything else?
Not from us, I don't think.
I guess I'd like to understand from the assessor's office whether there's any validity to the criticism that significant portion of the comps were beneath 9 acres. 12 of the 15 comps being below that. Right?
So we provided the sales that took place in the market area, and they weren't used necessarily directly to value the property itself. I see. What they're used for is to determine basically the neighborhood factor that goes into the entire area. So we're not saying that this 2-acre parcel should be used to say that this 200-acre parcel is worth this. It's just part of the overall model.
So it's a geographic, you had to report it. Right?
Is it fair to say you would use it for like the 2-acre home site portion of it?
Yeah, well, that would give, we would give more support to a 2-acre home, 2-acre parcel.
Right.
Using those.
But I mean, a portion of this is theoretically 2-acre home.
It's because the model itself begins with a 2-acre home site and then adds it adds value for the residual land, as we've talked about before.
I'd just like to have walk through the deductions for this.
Oh, absolutely.
For the physical.
For the land?
Yeah, for the land, for all of the environmental. Type.
Correct.
What you applied and your logic.
All right, so first they're not all in a row, but the home sites are, I believe, unadjusted. So the 3 home sites really have no issues on their 2-acre parts.
Yeah.
So it's the rest of the the property that has adjustments. So let me go through those. So this is. Okay. So we have 100 acres with a 30% reduction for topography. And we have an 8% reduction for size. Size is kind of the overall. So we have that 8% on all the plates. The floodplain, we have a reduction of 55% on that section, which is 99 acres. And 99 acres, I'm assuming it was measured off of GIS. And we can look at that later. That's
So much reduction was that on the floodplain?
55% reduction. 55%,
55%.
correct.
And then the 100 acres was
The 100 acres was minus 30%.
minus 30
Yeah, and both of them had also had a minus 8% for overall size.
for size.
Correct.
And what was the minus 30 for?
For topography, for the slope.
But there's no reduction for access.
No,
Mentioned says 25% of the overall area is critical. That would be the topo. But you've got 100 acres, you're applying 30% to.
correct.
That's more than
Well,
25%.
some of the critical slope is outside of the water protection areas, so the water protection areas are handled differently. So if critical slope exists within the water protection, I don't know how they're breaking it down.
That's what I'm trying.
Yeah,
So
Yeah, we've got 100 acres in the 100-year floodplain and water protection ordinance all combined together.
you got 100 acres.
100 acres that include the floodplain and the water protection area.
55 of those acres are in flood.
And then the 99 acres was
And that's the 99 acres in the floodplain.
99.
Yes.
Then the
Or
100 had,
floodplain plus water protection.
and then the 100 acres plus 99 acres plus before the home site says up to 203.
204 altogether, correct.
So I do agree with Frank that really the crux of the dispute is on the land. I'm not seeing anything on the housing that would cause me to want to revisit that or that will work on presumption of practice. I don't think I could agree that a conservation, that this is functionally under a conservation easement. I mean, the value of something after it's been burdened by a conservation easement is X, and the owners receive these tax credits that can be sold, right? So the differential is actually the reduction in the value net of X, or the present value of the tax credit is X. So it can't be the same that fully and finally extinguishing your development rights is the same as having building challenges, even significant ones. I mean, the ordinance could change in the future. There's got to be some value assigned to the possibility of development. I guess the bigger question is just, do we think there's sufficient evidence in the record before us that the assessor's office has appreciated those challenges or undervalued the challenges, right? With the numbers we just asked about.
I think the only thing that I haven't heard yet is the access issue. I don't think I fully understand where the roads are. Pull that map back up. The slopes map. So where is the property? Off that road that Chestnut, I think.
Let me take off the slope floodplain for a second, and you can see.
Okay, that's the end.
That's the.
And so those two parcels are the ones that are just vacant that you traveling goes to.
Correct.
And then there's that stream. Where does that little road go off to the right? Is that just like an access farm road?
It is a little interior farm road that goes to the Butler building there, the silver building.
There's your Butler builder. It is building, Mr. Knight.
And it also goes to one of the secondary dwellings.
All right, so just, zoom out, just put those colors back on there.
Is this something that you guys have accessible within your office, but not on the GIS site? Because
Not yet.
it doesn't look like anything that we can access.
Can blame the Iranians for hacking the site.
You actually can see all these layers on GIS.
Right, but this is a much better version of it.
Correct. Hopefully this weekend you'll be able to see this.
That's
They're doing maintenance this week.
and to your point, every realtor and within 100 miles of here are cussing that fella for hacking the system.
He made a couple million bucks. I mean, it's pretty cut up. I get it. I think you can get a road in there. I know the stream issues, but if you have a right for the use, the county is required, the state is required to allow you to get access to use.
Even though it goes over the.
It'll cost money. Yeah, no, you'll have to go through the permits, but they can't like say no. But they will.
You mean to widen it?
Yeah. If the approved use is, if the use is approved and it requires a wide road, they can't say, well, I know you can use it, but you can't get to it. That's kind of the concept. It's kind of like landlocked properties from public road access, like you said earlier. It's a concept, but same. I just wanted to get a feel for the whole overall thing and the access issues because. That's the.
Well, I do think that there should be some factor for access. Not to say that it could not ever be developed, because it eventually could, as opposed to conservation easement, which takes a while forever. So there's a difference there. But there will be some cost associated with possibly development, so we have to.
Well, as part of our diligence for what we did on the assignment was to talk to community development to find out if they thought there could be additional things done. They won't give you anything in writing without.
Believe me, I know.
Okay, so and it takes forever to get anything from them anyway. And I'm not being critical. It's a tough job that they have. But from what my conversation was with the folks that we spoke with there, is that it's very unlikely that anything further can be done with the property. We have a professional land surveyor that Mrs. White has spoken with that has told us that the property can't be developed any further. There's no more development rights on the property because they've all been extinguished. And matter of fact, they exceed what would be there under current.
When you say they were extinguished, do you mean this property has been modified since 1980?
This property can't be further developed. I mean, you would have to do a tremendous amount of.
You check on like, paper development rights, grant from the parent tract parcels in the 80s.
I'm just going by what another professional relayed to us. I spoke with the surveyor myself, and he essentially said that that was the case. I'm not a professional land surveyor, but part of my diligence as an appraiser is to research where I can research, and that's the research that we got. And to speak to Mr. Mayo's point real quickly, I know this is under conservation easement, but because of the extinguished development rights that are on the property, it is de facto in the same category as a conservation easement in the sense that you can't do anything more with it. So treating it as a parcel that has any development rights, I think, is just unfair to the parcel.
Mr. Lynch, if this property were in conservation, what would because right now we have a value of the land of about 2.9 million. How much would the 2.9 million come down if it were valued as if it were placed in conservation?
Almost to nothing. The land outside the home sites would be assessed at a couple $100 an acre. Based on not market value
and tax
based taxable value, based on state law, we would then have to assess it at land use rates, not at market rates.
But you would have an assessment if it didn't have these.
Correct.
And then you would reduce it because it's got an easement on it.
Correct.
So it has a number if it did, because you
Yes.
got it.
Yes.
That's how my property is.
But it's not a meaningful number because you're not taxed on it.
It's a meaningful number for me on my tax bill.
But
But I mean, I had to give up
You just say that
all future uses.
before and after conservation easements, there's not that much difference.
When you look at the resale market of them, no, the consumers are not really paying more or less for them. I mean, when someone buys a large piece of property with most of these properties have large estate homes on them. So they're in a luxury class. So folks who are buying properties like that, they usually don't discount the conservation easement. Now, sometimes you will see it, and like when you get out to more rural areas around the region, you do see a huge delta between them. But here in Albemarle and Loudoun County is the same way because they're the second most conservative county. We've studied it. I mean, I've been in business 26 years. I've spent 20 of it studying this stuff. And we just don't see a large delta between them once they resell.
Mr. Lynch, does the assessor's office agree on?
Totally disagree with that. So I am required, if the parcel would qualify for land use and an easement is put on it, I have to assess it at land use rates. However, if it would not qualify at the time conservation easement is on it, I have to assess it at a reduced value based on the conservation easement, but not at land use rates. In order to determine that amount, I did a study of properties under conservation easement that sold and found that that difference can be from 20 to 90% reduction in the sales price of those properties because of the conservation easement. I used 50% kind of with the conglomeration of all the sales that I had. Overall, 50%, I believe it can vary definitely, but I think no adjustment is absolutely not appropriate.
It seems to me that if the White Trust wants to have the property assessed as if it had a conservation easement on it, and they don't think there are any development rights, it should be placed in a conservation easement, and that's the path towards a better assessment in the manner that they're asking to be assessed. I can't support treating it like a conservation easement.
To be fair, Mr. Mayor, I think treating it like a conservation easement would be too low of an adjustment, would be too low of a value, because it's not under a conservation easement technically. But they have no benefit to the property to put a conservation easement on it, because what are they going to get out of it? I mean, if you've already extinguished all your development rights on the property, then what are you going to gain from putting a conservation easement on it, other than the way that the county is assessing it? Because the county has to assess it the way they assess it. They're legally required to do that. Doesn't necessarily fit to the real world all the time.
But if they're not giving up any rights, like that's a clear benefit, right? The land use rates. I mean, that's exactly what you guys are here to ask us to do, right? To adjust the value.
It should be adjusted down, yes, but I think if you went with the conservation easement rate that the county uses, you're probably going to end up with too low of a value. I mean, the value has a market value. It's not nothing.
Mr. Mayor, I just don't believe it's been established that the development rights have been extinguished on this parcel.
Yeah, I agree. I've been talking hypotheticals. Sounds like no one will take a written position on it. Gonna suggest maybe an attorney would do it, but probably run into the same trouble. Were there further questions on this? I think I end up feeling like if we had something that firmly established that the development rights are extinguished, then we could take action on that potentially, because it seems like the assessor's office is continuing to assign some value to the possibility of development. But I don't think that's unreasonable in light of what we have in front of us about the property. So if it were in a conservation easement, that would change. If we had an opinion from community development, that would change. If we had a compelling opinion from attorney or someone who could offer an opinion on that, I think I might feel differently. But for us to conclude that you cannot develop this parcel based on looking at this map of critical slopes, secondhand surveyor unknown. What was the name of the surveyor?
Ray, Ray's father, I think, owns the company.
I don't think I can get over the hump of a preponderance.
Well, I mean,
Sorry, over what?
under the Commonwealth's law, though, the assessor has to establish that there is absolutely development rights there, and they can't. And we need a third party involved with this, and then maybe it's going to the community development and getting the write a letter of determination on it.
I don't think that's correct.
I don't think that's correct either. And community development is not gonna make a decision on the property unless a plan is actually submitted to it for development.
They will not give you an opinion. You have to actually submit a preliminary plan.
We've got them in the past.
I do want to make this clear. We are not adding value to this parcel for the ability to add more houses to it or develop it. We do not, if that was the case, we would say there could be 10 more houses. We're putting 10 more home sites, even at a reduced amount. We don't do that. My point with development or with conservation easements was the inappropriateness of comparing the sales of conservation easement properties to a non-conservation easement.
I mean, I agree with that.
I agree with that
I think
too.
if it had an easement, you would look at other properties that had easements. This one does not. It's a holistic look at the market in general.
I could,
Yeah.
I still could see, some modification due to access because they did not put any factor in for access and it's obviously,
Orchard access.
restricted.
I mean, I could entertain that.
Could you just real quick remind me of what the reasoning is there from the assessor's office not to apply that? It seems like it has been applied in other cases where we've got an access over another parcel.
That is true. These parcels are owned by the applicant, so we didn't apply it for that reason.
There's a standard.
Really treat them in.
True. I'm not saying that's necessarily correct, but
Yeah, you
that's,
just answered our
that's
question.
why we did it. Yeah.
But is that always done as
It is always done.
What did we do? Was it 5% last time?
10%.
Was it 10?
Yes.
On the
Home
Track
site,
that-
home site only.
on the home site only, on the track that's being served by the
That is,
orchard access.
that is correct. That is correct.
I mean, we have the testimony that the properties are being divided among the beneficiaries of the trust, right?
Well, two of us,
What's that?
the two of us.
You're right, that's right. Just trying to reason my way towards whether it would be consistent to consider it that way. It hasn't happened yet, certainly hadn't happened as of January 1.
Mr. Mayo, I'm not sure I completely answered Mr. Mitchell's
Oh, sure.
question, but we would also apply the 10% to the parcel that it goes through. Like we discussed the other day on a
Right.
different property.
I know you said I'm not allowed to ask a question, but can I?
Why don't you go ahead and ask and we could decide whether they answer.
So, you didn't like Mr. Fincham using the conservation parcels as a way of assessing value for the parcel. But are you okay with the assessor's office using, 1 and 2 acre parcels to determine value? Or, I mean, what is the optimum way to determine the value of this property? Because it seems like we are one end here and one end here, but it's not, neither of them appear to be.
One of the things is parcels this large don't transact that often, so it asks for perfection and having the apples to apples is just not really the same expectation, but they track, holistic data across the entire county and then try to adjust, more specific to your parcel using other information. I mean, I'll let, if you would like to explain how you look at sales and how that goes into this.
Oh, sure. And first I want to say that the board hasn't actually made a decision yet. So they might have made some comments about different things, different board members, but they haven't actually made any decisions yet. So we use obviously any information that's available and we use, the list that we provided is the sales that took place in the market area that this property is in. And that is, like I said earlier, mainly used to determine the local multiplier for that neighborhood. But we also use sales throughout the county of larger parcels in order to determine if our our values or rates that we're using for home site and residual land is appropriate, and are we adjusting it appropriately for floodplain, and are we just appropriately for critical slope and stuff like that. So we use sales outside of this list for doing certain things in the model and certain things in specific properties based on what challenges basically they face in comparison, because our model is set up for a property with no issues. And then we adjust from that no issue situation to what the property is.
And the market area is like your neighborhood. I know you don't neighborhood, but you know, how often does a 200-acre parcel close within quarter mile of your house? Probably not often, but the county has some. So they take all of that information, then they take the smaller information around the neighborhood and try to adjust that. And then obviously the physical features of property.
The comps also were not 1 and 2 acre parcels. That was what Mr. Lynch explained. That was a sales report. The comps are 88, 24, and 91 acres.
Yeah, and I think part of the argument I was making earlier is that placing this into Key West market is not appropriate because it should be in a large acreage market, not in a confined small lot subdivision.
It's not a decision that you make, right? It's not like a field on the database as to what the market is.
Well, actually, I want to confirm that that's actually what we're talking about. This is in market area 202. It's not in Key West.
Then why are we looking at a sales ratio study for Key West? Or whatever subdivision it was that was provided. I don't have it in front of me, so.
But we're talking, okay, that's why we're talking about these in different groups. This is the main parcel. That is market area 202. The two parcels that provide access currently are in Key West.
Yeah, and that's just a fundamental difference of how we did the valuations differently. Again, as I began my information this morning, I was talking about treating it as one economic unit because of the encumbrance with the access. And they're treating them as 3 different economic units. So that's the difference.
You don't have to, right?
Yeah, there's no choice.
We have to put a value on all 3 of
I
them.
mean, and I remember state law was, you have to assess them individually.
Individually, absolutely.
And I understand what y'all do.
At their highest and best use.
It's a little different.
Sure. But they can be assessed in a way that makes them work as one economic unit too. It's just a matter of, you know, how they want to sharpen their pencil on it. That's all.
I want to go back to Mr. Friedman's question again, because I'm still in the same place on the land. If I look at the assessor provided comparables, there's 2 that are close to 90 acres. And the land values are 1.13 and 1.4 million dollars. The subject property is 200 acres, and that's at 2.8 million. I'd like to get a better understanding why those land values are so different. So in particular, if we take at face value the argument that the subject property is not developable, so it's really equivalent to 1 parcel. It's not clear to me that there'd be a difference between 90 acres and 200 acres in terms of what it would transact at. So I'm just would like a better understanding of why, you know, comp number 1, comp number 3, why those land values are so much lower than the subject property.
So part of that answer is in the subject has 3 homes. So even though it is 1 parcel, we are valuing the fact that there are 3 homes on it. So the land to support the 3 homes.
So we're really valuing it as if it's 3 parcels?
Not 3 parcels, but 3
acres of homes.
3 home sites, yes.
Yeah, 3 home sites.
Acres of home.
So when it comes to home sites on the same parcel, it's not quite the same as if they were 3 separate parcels. We reduce those for their non-separability since they're all together. So we reduce the second home sites in value. They're actually a home site 2 instead of a home site 1, which is 20% less. But we also value the house on that home site at a 20% reduction for being a second house on the same home, on the same property.
Okay.
So we address both the house and the home site.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at a $1.5 million difference. The 2 home sites.
That's true. That's only part of it.
So
the first comparable has one home on it, so it doesn't have the two additional home sites. The second comparable has two homes, so it would only has one additional home site, and the third one only has one home, so it doesn't have the two additional home sites. Then the additional land is then going to be valued at a residual rate. And honestly, well, we do have adjustments. No, we don't have adjustments on here. You had actually a separate sheet that had adjustments. But that was still done. That was okay. Those, all of the components of the land, we were talking about 100 acres that were valued with a certain reduction and 99 acres valued with another reduction. The same thing will happen on these. And if you look at that page on the assessor provided comps down at the bottom, there's a RS1 has adjustments. The RS1 and 2 have adjustments to them on each of those. And I can pull one up and just see what it's like.
So you know that first one on Benavar Drive, that lies directly across the river there from
From the subject.
from the subject property.
Right.
And it is subject to the same floodplain area.
So can I also make a comment addressing?
So
Well, that reports it.
So, yeah, so we have 43 acres that are reduced 30% and then 5% for size. It's very similar to what we did on the subject parcel. And then we have a 43.85 acres that are reduced by 75% for low end, which is basically the same. You know, different category, but it's basically the same as.
Is there an adjustment in there for economies of scale?
We gotta keep this.
Yeah, let's between us for now.
So this is. Which one is this one? Oh, it's over here. So this one is this parcel, the comparable one, and this is the subject property. So we feel this is a pretty good comparable to the subject. But to answer your question about the differences, that's how we adjust this subject,
So you have a 75% adjustment for something. I don't catch what it was for. And it looks like in the same code, it's 55% for the subject property.
75%. No.
Yeah,
yeah, it was minus 55% for the subject property, right?
so why why is 175 and 155?
That I can't answer.
I think we have. Oh, you're right, yes, 25% we're saying is in the flood hazard area.
It's a discount that's been applied to the land that's in that area.
Correct.
So why is it
different?
Why is it different?
For the one than the other?
So it seems, I mean, it seems like they should be it seems like they should be comparable.
Okay. I agree.
I don't disagree with that.
How much of a difference would that make?
That I can't tell you. 2.5. This is the 0.25. Add 2,883,400 on the land, and that change alone would drop it to 2,524,400, so 360,000.
Yeah, I agree with that change.
But then the second part is the, I guess, the scales of the properties. So again, it's not clear to me that there's a big difference between 100 acres that you can't do anything with and 200 acres that you can't do anything with. Like both of them are obviously large parcels, but they're, not developable, they're not developable. Is it, and I think that ties back to the point on sort of these access rights, where if I have 200 acres with no access rights, sort of almost impossible to develop, that would look like 100 acres in my mind. So I'm just, how do we, with the way that we do these valuations right now, how do we capture the difference between 100 acres and 200 acres?
That's through the size adjustment.
Okay, and then what is the size adjustment for 100 acres? What is it for 200 acres?
So the 200 acre,
It was 5.
I always have too many numbers in my head. 8%. And it was 5%
It
on
was
the other
5%.
parcel. Correct, that's the difference.
That's the difference.
3%.
Seems like we had 5% on, parcel, yes, or 2 days ago, that was like 20. So is that scaled according to like relative size in the rural versus the smaller tracts?
I feel like it's 2% at 20.
Maybe it was more like 40, right, there's the one with the power lines, I think.
Okay, so if we wanted to recognize that the parcel is harder to or difficult to develop, it would be an access right adjustment.
We
That's
had
what you have in
discussed
mind?
access on two parcels that the driveway goes through at the end of
It would just be for those two
Chestnut,
parcels.
and it's also on the home site. Just the home site,
It's just the home.
not the improvements,
Typically, we only put it on the home site.
not the improvements, not the.
No, not in the improvements, no.
I feel conflicted about doing that if they say that they never do it where there's common ownership though.
I agree.
If ultimately the parcels are divided in a way that doesn't reflect common ownership, that it seems like there'd be a strong case for that adjustment to be made next year.
My only argument with that is you're supposed to do these individually. They all stand on their own.
Yeah, but we can
I mean,
see.
the value of
I
these
mean,
two
I've
lots is-
discounted his argument about
Good.
combined economic. But I'm just trying, you know how me and my consistency. But
I mean, where the difference in value is right now is really the 5% versus the 8%. Okay, so when we look at 100 acres, we're applying a volume discount of 5%. At 200 acres, it's only 8%. So we're not quite, but almost not really discounting the fact that it's double the size. So it's double the size, it's double the value. And that's the part that's tricky because with the double the size, what we're implying is that there's access and there's development ability that's double what there is on the 100 acres. But what we've talked about is the idea that that's not really true in this case.
Yeah, I guess my question is, I think I understood Mr. Lynch to say, we adjust for the concern you have that 900 undevelopable acres is just as good as 200. So we adjust for that by size. But it seems like you have a standard size adjustment schedule that doesn't consider the development potential of the property, right?
That is correct.
Right.
So that's the issue. It's an intensified problem here.
Exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm saying the same thing, right? Well, so
Did we ever have an answer to why the inconsistency on the discount for a floodplain?
No, we don't. They were looked at different times, I'm sure, and a different number was put on both. I don't have any explanation.
There's some other factor besides the size adjustment. I hate to skew your size adjustment off of the standard schedule, but is there some other way that we could address the residual value in light of what we recognize are development challenges? And I predict you're gonna say, hey, all the value of the development is in the home site, not the residual, but there'd be some use made of it, right?
there could be some use made of the other, I mean.
Yes, you might
People
rent it
buy
out
this,
or-
the large parcels, not because they're necessarily gonna develop the large parcel, but they like to have space. They like to have room between them and the neighbors, and like to just have land to walk around on and, you know, do whatever.
And if you have a better one you have to get to, you can put, you have your build a lot, you know, your build area, if you need to buy acre feet, that. So it has value.
Right.
I see.
So can I make a comment to, that when Mr. Naughton was talking, I wanted to ask or make a statement about Benvitar? Is it okay for me to do that? When I was looking at card, and again, I'm not a real estate professional. And I think this question may have been answered or addressed at least. I didn't necessarily understand the answer. When I was sitting down looking at the cost per acre for the Benvitar, it came out to be 12,702 per acre versus my parents' property was coming out to be a lot more per acre, and you didn't quite understand why with the smaller 88 acre parcel, the cost per acre was less than with 200 acre parcel. Again, because my understanding was that large parcels usually,
What was that because of the adjustment on the, right, that was what we were just discussing.
yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah.
It wasn't
So
positive.
we're talking about correcting that. I think we talked about correcting that.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's just, it hasn't worked, because I agree, we don't wanna mess with the acreage. That's a consistent schedule, we don't really wanna mess with that, so we need to come up with another way to recognize that the 200 acre property isn't worth double the 100 acre property from a land perspective.
Can you bring the map back in on those two? So the question, I gather the question here. Got some environmental encumbrances and just floodplain or the critical slopes.
It's both floodplain and critical slope.
Okay, so anything with colors,
What's that?
anything with colors.
Anything with color, correct?
Okay.
Yeah.
So then zoom out and give me the blue around the subject parcel, please.
Oh, I'd have to. Sit, oops.
I just wanna see a gut check on the percentage of the colors on subject parcel versus a percentage of the colors covering. Is that, I mean, that has some,
But you're,
and where they
you
distribute.
only applied it to
But I'm just saying, just looking at it. The distribution as a percentage of what's being covered on both of those parcels is similar.
that's pretty smooth.
You know, there are chunks that are not cut up, there are chunks that are. You could argue that Medicare has actually got more usable, like congruent land than subject parts of land. You know, there's ridges there and so my suggestion is that we apply the same reduction subject that the Benefar parcel has. Did we just run those numbers? That's what.
That's the number we were just talking about.
To go up to the 0.75.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, so we're all aboard with that, I think that part. And the question is whether we wanna go.
I'm not sure I want to mess with that. That sizing.
It's just,
Yeah. How are what are the sizing and automatic thing in your system, or is that manual? Just like
It's manually entered, but it's from a schedule.
Okay. So there's scheduled size, you know, the size lot, blah, blah, blah.
Size of the additional acreage over the home site.
And there's theoretically a schedule on this critical slopes, floodplains too, or you think that that's more of a subjective?
Not subjective so much, but more based on the specific parcel. How much of it?
What I'm just sitting here looking at going.
Yeah.
How much of it covers and where does it cover it?
Where
What
exactly?
Does it leave as a these garage chunks.
Exactly.
Like if it's all around the perimeter, it's not important, but if it's mixed in, it's important.
That's why there's no set schedule for this acreage.
I mean, I think the subject one is actually maybe even more impacted as a, like, fingers running through it than the better bar, so that's my suggestion.
What's the proposal exactly?
To apply a 75% discount on the environmental features on the subject parcel instead of the current 50%.
Yeah, which will reduce it by 360,000.
Right,
That would only be on the RS2.
that's right. Make
Correct.
the bigger one, not the two smaller.
Okay, yes, I think I've already spoken support that one. Yeah. On the other things, the word conservation easement, if they didn't have common ownership, it seems like we'd have enough to take action on it, but I still feel like the applicant has carried its burden on those issues. Is there any other anyone else want to weigh in or make another argument for outcome? Okay, is there a motion with respect to? Yeah, application number 41, that's one of property ID 26140. We'll refer to it as like the access parcels.
I'll make a motion, we'll leave it as is.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Okay, the assessor's office is affirmed with respect to application number 41 unanimously. Is there a motion with respect to application number 42? This is the that's right, there's small parcel, that's right.
I make a motion that we affirm the assessor's number of 99,300 on application number 42.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor? Aye. All opposed? All right, assessor's office is affirmed with respect to application number 42, property ID 26139. Is there a motion with respect to application number 43, property ID 25409, the large state parcel?
What's the number on that?
I'll make a motion to reduce the.
I can give you
What
the
do you want to
numbers.
call it? Because you need to know why.
360
number.
You can include Y in the motion, but I can give you the numbers.
Give me a number first.
So the land to 2,524,400.
Okay.
Which would make the total value 4,158,900.
Okay, make a motion to reduce application 43, tax map 625100. The land value of $2,524,400. Is that right? Improvements stay where they are for a total of $4,158,900.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
One second. Do you want to include in there by addressing the discount from
I'll-
55 to 75?
I'll say do we call it the environmental discount?
It's the floodplain and water protection area, or basically it's floodplain.
Adjusting the RS2 to 75% instead of.
Correct. A negative 75% instead of negative 50.
Yeah, just so that we have a record of why we did this
Yes.
Okay.
going forward.
Yeah, and we'll include that in our
You
notes
okay to
also.
put that in the
Yes,
motion?
I agree to that.
Okay, the revised motion, subject to Mr. Freeman's proposed amendment, now calls for a second.
Second.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? All right, the motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much for your presentation.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
You can split it and then give up all of your development rights and take it back.
Oh, you mean by doing, yeah, except she has kids, I don't, so she wants to.
At work.
I didn't understand, is potential building development rights included in the assessment or not? Do I need to get a surveyor to come before here?
If you want to make an argument that this should be more, I'm gonna give you advice outside of the law.
Is this being recorded? Or,
It is.
I mean,
so let's,
you should come back with more information.
With surveyors saying,
Yeah,
okay,
he can't
I mean,
say anymore.
no, telling,
once we finish recording,
okay,
we can,
he'll walk me through it.
I'll give you.
We have to do the minutes.
Yes.
So it was or was not included in the 30.
We're not gonna answer that on the record.
Oh,
We don't
the
know.
answer?
There's not a time to ask questions of the assessor's office on the record. If you'd like to approach him afterwards, in my experience, the assessor's office is very transparent about
Okay.
how they reach their numbers. I encourage you to do that. Sure.
Thanks.
Certainly. Anything else for us to take up today? World business? Okay, in that case, is there a motion to adjourn?
Mr. Mayor, I just wanted to say the next hearing meeting is May 26th.
May 27th.
May 20
29th.
May 27th at 1 o'clock. And we're going to start filling that meeting and the 29th, which is also from 1 to 5.
Okay.
But the 28th is canceled.
We're just not gonna fill it at the moment, so that there's a break in between the two meetings. If we need to, we'll use it. If there's so many appeals at that point that we still need to use it, and we don't want to push into too far into June, July, August. But
You'll let us know in advance so we can hopefully take it off our calendars.
oh, I will, yes.
Yeah, I'll send out meeting invitations so that you'll get those.
Make a motion, we adjourn.
All right, is there a second?
second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, this meeting of the April 24th, 2026 meeting of Board of Equalization of Albemarle County is adjourned at 11:21 a.m. Early.
Makes up for it the other day.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
Never know.
Well, you should